All right, we're gonna just call this frame, this animation timing, and we're gonna change our frame rate to 24 frames per second. So this will all happen in 1 second, and that's just to help us kind of understand how our spacing and how our frames are going to affect the timing of our animations. And so on frame 1, we're going to just draw a circle for our first shape. And what I'll do here is I'm going to mark out kind of the beginning, the middle, and the end. And again, what these are called are keyframes. So we're kind of just marking our key positions, and then we're going to come back and fill in the in-between frames to create the motion. So here's our second keyframe. This is going to be in the middle of the animation eventually. And then we'll mark out our last position. And again, right now they're just 3 frames, but we're going to insert frames in between. Okay, so I'm inserting a frame in between the first and the middle position. And don't worry too much about not getting it quite right. You can always undo it, and you can always adjust the position, which is what I'm going to show you how to do. And I'm going to again skip ahead, and now this is frame 4. And this is frame 5. And now we have all of our 6 frames. You'll notice how fast it moves. So again, in those 6 frames, that's about 1/4 of a second. We've moved from one side of our frame to the other. So we know that that is going to be a quick movement. I'm going to make some adjustments here at the beginning because I think we can even this spacing out. And so I'll use a selection tool here, and then I'll just adjust those positions on each frame just to space it out a little more evenly. One thing to kind of understand also is the closer things are in between frames, again, the faster that movement's going to look like. And we'll get more and more of that as we do this. So there's our first one. Now let's continue by doing our second animation, or our second object. And for this object, we'll just switch up the color a little bit, just so we can mix it up. So I'll choose red, and I won't change any of the pen settings. This time we're going to just draw a square. We're going to try to keep it square. And again, for this animation, we're going to try to keep these all relatively the same size. There will be slight variations, but that's okay. It adds a little bit of kind of character to your shapes and to your animation as you go frame to frame. Don't be afraid to clean up your shape if you think it's a little too messy, so just erase there. And now in this second shape, we're going to slow our object down. And so we'll move this across the screen in 12 frames, so about half a second. And so this time, if I need to, I'll kind of separate this, but I'm going to just kind of use our previous shapes as a guide. And so by frame 6, I want to make it to the halfway point. So I'm just going to kind of use that as my guide. So halfway, that's 6 frames, and let's look at that. So right now they're moving in the same amount of time, but they're moving different distances. So that's going to change how that animation appears to the viewer, right? The second object, the square, is going to move a little bit slower. And so we'll continue this until we hit frame 12. And again, you want to keep your spacing similar. You might get a little crowded at the end, but if you plan it right, it should work out. So I'm just going to draw on each frame. And here's the last frame. Again, a little overlap, but not a big deal. If I wanted to, I could go back and adjust that, but it's not too big of a deal. Again, this is a short animation, so you don't notice these things too much. And so again, we have now our second object is animated. Now we'll do our third object. And again, the whole point of this is to kind of understand how the spacing and how the amount of frames you're using is going to affect the timing of your animation. This third object will, again, slow it down even more. It's going to smooth out the motion a little bit and also slow it down. For this one, we'll do a green triangle. And we're going to move this all the way across in, this time, 18 frames. So about 3/4 of a second. Again, if you wanted to, you can go in and mark in the kind of points. So here's frame 9, which is about our halfway mark. You don't have to do it this way, but you can if you want to. At this point, you have 12 frames in your animation, so you can go forward and backward and draw this as you think, the way you think works best for you. If you want to just start with 1 and go to 2 and go frame to frame, that's fine. If you want to mark in your keyframes and then fill those in, also that's fine. But what you'll kind of discover as you do this is you'll figure out what works best for what you're doing or for how you like to animate. So right now I'm just kind of like thinking about what positions might be. So here's frame 1 again, and I marked in 3, and now I can kind of fill in the space between 2. It's a little off in terms of level, but that's fine. I can just fill in the space. Right, that spacing is off. So I'm going to just I'm going to select that and adjust it, just kind of nudge it over. And then that's going to give me an idea of my spacing. So are kind of those bottom corners of my triangle are going to overlap a tiny bit, or at least touch. And again, this is going to move across in 18 frames. So by frame 9, you want to hit the middle of your frame. And by 18, you're at the other side. Okay, so frame 10, we're going to continue this and again, keep the spacing the same, or attempt to, and keep your volume of your shape the same. You don't want it to change too much. And we're going to go to frame 18 here. So around 14 or 15, you want to be about 3/4 of the way. So I'm going to make sure that as I draw these, I'm staying close to that. And again, if you need to, you can readjust these. I'm going to just kind of push through. These are close enough. It does get a little tight here because probably didn't plan this out as best as I could, but again, no worries, you can always adjust. And so we're approaching the end here. Again, you're aiming for 18 to be at the last position on the right. So here's 17 and 18. And obviously you can make sure your shapes are as well drawn as possible. So here's our animation so far. Again, sort of the same motion, but in different timings and different speeds. And you're gonna do one more. So your fourth shape will be a rhombus. And you can do that in a different color. And I'm gonna let you work on that. But what I would like you to do is have a little more, you can have a little more freedom on this. You're gonna animate this in 24 frames. So the full 1 second, you will take it. And at the end though, what I would like you to do is I want you to change it up. So as you all are moving this, I want you to also change the shape gradually. So instead of staying the same shape, a diamond, I want you to sort of morph it, transform it into another shape. You can use any of the other shapes that you already did, but any other shape than the one you started with, you're also welcome to change the color, rotate it, but the minimum is you want to transform that. So what I'll do is I'll add to the last frame my ending shape. And so I'll take that rhombus, that diamond, and turn that into a hexagon. And so that'll be your animation. That's it. Let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.